Hey everybody,
Hello,
how you doing?
everyone.
Sorry, we're running a little late today because tech issues. So stick with us. We're on board. We're going to get going here in just a minute.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
All right.
All right, very good. I have posted.
Oh boy, great. All right, I've shared it. All right. Seems like it's working now.
Yeah, seems like it's going good.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. All righty then. Let me see. I just want to get here and. Okay, I'm going to delete this one.
Man, I don't want people to get confused.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting rid on my sites of the old one, just to make sure that we're clear. Sorry, folks, we're running a little bit late today, but we'll be right to the show in just a minute. Tech problems. Actually, this always happens when William is here, so I don't know what's going. He says he doesn't know anything about it, but I hear that a lot in my business.
The drama drives up views.
Yeah.
Is what I've heard.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Cool.
There you go. That is true. Yep.
I'm ready.
All righty. Day to day. The guy I love having on the show, and I think we've had him on the show more than anybody else, 5-time Burnie Applebox winner, Mr. William Hellmuth.
Thanks for having me on again.
Oh yeah, you bet. You
Surprised
bet.
you haven't gotten tired of
And
me
you're
yet.
still getting the same pay you got on the first four.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were doubling it on this one. Whatever.
I could.
That's right.
I
Great.
could.
All right, let's do it.
Wouldn't cost me anymore.
Great. All right.
So today I got. Oh, let me give a shout out to Mr. Tony over here on the desk, the guy that we have driven absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
We had to restart the show. We had to abort the show. It was frozen up. VMix was frozen up. So
Good times.
we had to come back, and that's when Tony earns the money right there. And of course, then we do things like he lines all the cameras up and. We move our chairs, you know.
Yeah. You guys end up, everybody's got to go to the bathroom and get a drink.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Actually, a secret is we do that intentionally just to drive Tony crazy. And it works every time.
It does.
Oh, my
Yeah.
gosh. So, William, thank you for being here, sir.
Of course.
Much appreciated. And we're going to talk about several things, but we don't have to just start killing it right now on this, but I just want to tell everybody, there is something that we all have, and I think it's to a certain degree. You don't have to be in this business to have it, but it's called Impostor Syndrome. And that is where you somehow, even after 20 years of experience, even after being on top of your game for a long time and really staying on it, something inside of you is telling you, oh, you don't know everything. You better be careful what you say, or they're going to find out that you don't know as much as you think you know. Okay?
Right.
And it's something you do inside your head. It's self-defeating. You know what I mean? But to a certain degree, we all have a little bit of it in one subject or another, you know. And I know I was saying when we were talking about this that I can be in the, 20 years in this business talking about G&E and stuff like that. And I can see a picture on Facebook, and I think to myself, you know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, would I know how to do that?
Yeah.
You know, would I know how to, the answer is yes, you would, but you haven't been called upon to think it through yet.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you get that, you do the same thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Everyone does. It's like, you can when you're creating stuff yourself, you not only see that final image that you make, but you also, at least for me, whenever I see that final image, I see everything that went into making it. You know? So it's like, I can see if maybe that didn't take a lot of lighting work on my end to do. So then it might look great, but I'm like, oh, I just pointed the camera and hit record. Or maybe it did take a lot of lighting to do, but it's like, but still, it's like when you see the work behind an image, at least for me, like something about it, like it just doesn't click. Like for me, like I'm not like impressed like I am when I just see someone post like some awesome stills. Or just an actual awesome video. Most of the time these days we just see stills from other people's work.
We do on the social media because that's really the coin of the realm, if you will.
But like, when all you're seeing is that end result and not everything that it took to get there, like you do sort of question, like
whether I could have handled that or something.
Sure.
And you know what? It's a funny thing because we've all been, and this is why we actually get paid what we get paid. We've all been thrown into that situation of like, wow, that's right out of left field. Nothing prepared me for what you're asking me to do now because everything changed from the last time we talked till now, and now it's much different. Now you got to get very creative. You've got to, look at lighting a lot more people than you had, say, what you brought, and you've got to get creative doing that. That is when you prove to yourself you know what you're doing. It really is, because I remember things like one shoot I was doing for Oakley one time in the opening of this sort of corporate movie that they were having, and they assured me that it was just one person at one time all day of these 12 people. Guess what the second shot of the day was? All 12 people
all
standing there with very little distance between them and the camera, and I pulled it off. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Wasn't a magic man, what I mean? Wasn't perfectly lit, but it fit in with the rest of the piece. It was attractive enough to do that, you know what I mean? And good. And, everybody's like, oh, that's so great. I can't believe you pulled that off. And, of course, that feels good. But you're feeling, I was feeling a little bit like, oh, I'm so glad that came out. Because you don't know. And I think that's where it comes from, is like, can you do this? And you see, it's just an expansion, right, of what you already know.
It is, I mean, for me, when it comes to something like Imposter Syndrome, where you're worried that people are going to, like, I don't know, find out that you don't know everything, and that they're going to, like, somehow, like, want to nail you for it. Like, there are, like, two things that I try to do. For one, I try to kind of lean into that and recognize, like, in a way, it's true. Like, I don't know everything.
Who does?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm always learning. And there are some things that, like, that might seem like pretty basic knowledge to other people that I don't know. And that's okay.
Right.
Like, and vice versa. And this is where I flip it, and I need to remind myself that, like, I don't know everything. There are many things I don't know.
Right.
But there's a lot I do know. And sometimes what I do is, like, I'll look back on myself like 2-3 years ago, and I try to, look at, like, the work I was making then and look at what I'm doing now. Or I just kind of blanked out a little bit there, but
oh, that's okay.
So, like,
let me say something there. Talk about the imposter syndrome. I'm getting a little older. I blank out now. Used to be I did what you did. I just go, I just blanked out. Now I'm going like, I don't want to say I blanked out because now
right.
I'm tagged with the old guy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I mean, it happens that way too. It's sort of your circumstances and kind of what you think people are going to, the assessment they're going to make of you.
Yeah. I mean, and you have to remember that no matter how much you don't know, that there are people who know less than you. Is what I remember. Like
we can assure the world of that. We can assure the world of that, William.
Like
absolutely.
Like even before I knew anything about lighting, and all I knew was camera, for example. Before I started really working as a DP, I had to remind myself that even just knowing camera and knowing how to frame and kind of like find good light in a room, I knew more than any non-professional out there.
Absolutely.
And not just, I didn't just know more than them, but that even just that bit of knowledge I had a lot of value, like real value.
Yes.
And so like that's what I, at that level, that's what I kept reminding myself of.
Yes.
And then like as I learn more, I'm kind of like just constantly reminding myself. It's that I honestly like. It's that exact same thing over and over again for me.
Yes,
yes.
Yeah. For me, it took the one time that somebody, and I had always been playing tag along, I guess. You know what I mean? I'd been the grip, so I was never the guy who was the gaffer or in charge of the lighting. Certainly not the DP, anything like that. Then one time a client called me, and I was assuming it was my regular workload. But this is before I even owned any lights. You know what I mean? And I went out there. They had the lighting and stuff, and I go, "Who's the gaffer on this?" She looks at me and goes, "It was you." You know what I mean? Well, I better figure it out. It was so that day, and I remember it just like this. But that day was so important for my career because when I walked away from that set that day, I had that for the first time ever. In this business, I had that. Hey, you pulled it off, and it looked great. That's so empowering. That's so powerful. You know what I mean? And you should be doing that for yourself. And here's another one: is you and I, if you make a mistake, hey, you made a mistake. Forgive yourself. Would you beat somebody up if they made a mistake? Would you say, "Oh, you made a mistake. You can never work again"?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're worthless.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't. You know, it's just that type of thing.
Right.
It's that self-belief. And some of the most powerful DPs I have worked for, the best ones, really, have looked at me and go, "What do you think?"
Yeah. Well, that's another thing I was going to say is. Embracing the fact that on set as a DP or even a gaffer, like you may not know you may not have as much knowledge as some of the people who are working for you.
Yes.
And that's okay because this job isn't all about knowledge. There's a lot, about
so much more than knowledge.
And
so much
leadership
more than,
abilities. There's a lot that goes into it besides just how much do you know.
Absolutely.
So it's okay to be honest about you know what, guys, I don't actually know much about. I don't know. I'm terrible at improvising, but I don't know much about lighting a green screen.
Yeah.
Go to your gaffer. Hey, what do you know about this or whatever?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure you do what we do. I mean, in my case, and it has been this way for almost 20 years of this, I'm always hiring guys that know more than me. I select them because they know more than me. That is such a thing. Because I've got my ideas, and you know this, I'm sure very well. You walked in with an idea, and you got a better one on set. Right? From whatever reason. Maybe a guy did something, this. What I've always loved on set is being a gaffer is putting the light there, turning it on once you get it powered up, and then the DP goes, "Oh my God, that's great!" I just set it down because I was tired of carrying it, and that's always fun, and that's always fun. And to me, I want to get your take, but that's the way light works. I never assume I know what's going to happen when I turn that light on.
You can have a pretty good idea, and even a pretty near, in some cases, a pretty close to exact knowledge of what's going to happen when you switch this light on. But that is one of my favorite things about lighting a scene is you flip on that light and you kind of know like, okay, it's going to be kind of like this, but I love turning that on and getting behind the camera and kind of going, oh, well, that worked really well, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's the most fun.
Yeah,
I think that's the most fun,
yeah.
you know, is when you're doing that and it looks so much better than you would have, you were imagining it.
Yeah,
would,
or so much worse. But,
so much worse. You know, let me get your take on this.
Yeah.
My friend Bill Hoshevnikov had a saying. I don't think this was his quote, but he was very, very fond of saying it. There's only one right place for the camera. You know, and what he meant by that, in my interpretation of it, was you may have the camera in a place, but it may not be the right place. Maybe a good place, but it's not the right place.
Right.
You know, like when that light comes on and you do it. Give me your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to argue with the great Bill.
Oh, no, but I don't think it's an argument. Yeah.
I would, for me, I would say there's not, as far as camera placement goes, there's not always one right place to put the camera in relation to the light. You know, like it's...
well, I think, to tell you the truth, because I think this is what Bill would interject, is that
I think so.
The right place doesn't just include the lighting. It includes the story.
Yeah,
you know
and that's what I was getting to. It's just like, it doesn't, when I immediately hear that statement, what I would initially think is, oh, well, that means like, you know, that there's always one kind of objectively best place to place the camera.
Yeah.
But in reality, yeah, like whatever the story or the intent is behind whatever it is you're shooting, whether it's talking head or, you know, a feature or whatever, that one right place, that best place for the camera is going to be different, like with every single thing you shoot.
Oh, with every
even if the lighting and blocking and everything is all the same.
It's not a standard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think too, he was looking at it, it's like once you find it, you know it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And once you get that camera placed for that scene, and that's what I'm talking about, because it tells that particular part of the story.
I mean, but then something I really like to do also when I'm shooting a movie, which is one of the reasons why I really like to shoot with zooms, is keeping an element of exploration in the filming. So we kind of find that right place, you know, we frame it all up, everything's perfect, we shoot it, and then, you know, maybe we have an extra couple minutes or something. The director's got the take he likes. Yeah. Then he, you know, the director and I can say like, all right, well, what do we do if we zoom out all the way or zoom in? You know?
Look at it.
And then, you know, maybe once that happens, maybe we like it, maybe we don't. Yeah. But like the cool thing about that I found is like is I can find stuff that that I never would have thought of before, angles or perspectives. Sure. And sometimes like that ends up being the right one. So it's
no, absolutely, absolutely. And you know, really, what it is we get on set, the clock is always ticking. Yeah. We have very little time to experiment. Yeah. And you know, the bigger the budget, the more experimentation you can do. Obviously, but we ain't there. You know what I mean? It's on that. So getting those opportunities on set to experiment, to see something different, and maybe add to the production value, you know what I mean, is huge. I want to ask you, because I think this is something that I know, you know, visualization. I don't think I have very good skills at visualization. You know what I mean? Tell me about when you're reading a script and you're seeing it and you're visualizing it. What are you seeing? And let me define that a little bit. Camera placement, because you're in context of the story. Right. Camera placement. Are you seeing lighting when you're looking at that first thing, or is that even important to you? You know, I mean, where do your visualization go when you're reading that script, trying to assess, forgetting really the story for a little bit and just seeing each scene? What's that like?
I mean, for me, honestly, the very first time I read through a script, I pay a lot more attention to how I'm feeling, and the images in my mind are pretty abstract. They're not concrete at all. Okay. I try to lean into that into that intuition, I guess, of just like how am I feeling when I'm reading this? Am I seeing? Sometimes I'll see colors, you know, kind of just flashing through my mind, or
like you're feeling this is warm, or this is
cool.
You know,
it's a lot like when I would read a book. You know, like it's a lot more subjective, almost like I'm a character, like that first person perspective.
Yes.
But there are still elements like imagery kind of flashing through my mind. So usually what it takes is like several reads of a script, you know, of a scene, breaking that down, and usually writing down, you know, I'm all about free association. So maybe, you know, you mentioned like, oh, warm, this feels warm, which is going to make me think about like.
And do you do that in your own mind while you're reading the script? Do you free associate a little bit, or is it
the free association? It's part of the breaking down process, but when I'm reading, it's more just paying attention to how I'm feeling, and really broad strokes. Usually, like you know, like I mentioned, you know, like you said, warm, or maybe colors, or just general feelings that I'm feeling throughout everything as I'm reading the script, and then it's kind of like slowly taking these big broad feelings that I have as I'm reading, and then kind of like funneling them through this process to where it goes from these big broad feelings to like. You know, I kind of like this free association thing I do, and I kind of try to see words that might pop up a bunch, you know, and then from there I start seeing these things, and I'm like, oh well, this is a language here. This is a cinematic language or a style that I'm starting to. Maybe I'll see certain thematic elements repeated throughout the story or the script, and then from there it's like bringing that down even more and saying like, well, okay, like, given these ideas, what about like lens choices, focal length, you know, like what kind of focal lengths do I want to use in every scene in this movie? Usually, like with every script I read, I try to develop like a language for that, a visual language. And stick to those rules as closely as I can while we're filming. So what that would mean is, I mean, typically in a visual language that I would make, like focal length plays a very, very large role in that, because the perspective you're seeing everything. Well, and then from there, like light, like, you know, and I do get very specific with the kind of lighting I want in a scene. And yeah, just kind of like it just, you know, it's hard to describe, but it goes from that big like intuition down, and just I keep just boiling it down, funneling it until it gets really specific.
You start with a feel, and then you're getting sort of a color feel too. You're getting the warm, the cool, all of that. And then breaking it down now more specifically to a scene, and what lens you're going to use, and what focal length that you have, and all of that. You do that. Now tell me I mean, and that's kind of broad because you're not doing it yet. I mean, in other words, when you walk into that actual scene that you've thought out all through, I mean,
but that's why you need to do the process, because what the scene is about, what the visual language isn't necessarily, oh well, we want like, you know, a 5:1 ratio or something, like, you know, and we want the scene is about like the scene is about a core belief or an emotional event. Is what it is. Like maybe these two characters are getting closer or farther apart, you know, something like that.
And accentuating that,
and then
with the style of shooting.
That can play out multiple ways, visually or with actors' performances. Or this is like the exact same way an actor would break down a script, pretty much. And then that frees you when you're on set to not be married to this like, oh no, it must be like this focal length or this kind of lighting or whatever, because sometimes you walk into a space and in that moment you realize, just like with a performance, like that this core, this emotional event you're trying to capture is best captured another way. Because that's what matters, not
what matters, not what your preconceived ideas are on doing this. Also, let me ask this, because this, you know, being a gaffer, not a DP, you know what I mean? This is something I'm not really ever called upon to really look. But the overall look and feel for the movie. Now, I know that's going to come from direction, too. That's going to come from the director. But when you're doing that overall, tell me, do you have like a thing that's... I know you're taking these pieces and putting them all together, you know... I don't have a great example to give you, but just speak to that maybe.
Sure. So you mean like when?
Let me say, like, if it's a taxi driver. Okay, just because I'm old guy and I think taxi driver, but you know, Scorsese went in that with a real feel.
Yes.
I mean, he went that street,
very stylized,
gritty feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Say something like some I don't know, something much warmer, much happier, much more feel good is going to have more color, more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
More warmth, more all of that. How do you formulate that? Is that formulating, or is that after the process? That
No, that's definitely in pre-production. Like, and that's part of that, like that kind of funneling process. Where, and a lot of this is, you know, the whole process I described is also involves heavy discussions with the director, figuring out who she wants. And that's and so kind of like before getting down into each scene, I try to figure out what's our overarching language here, like what's the overall visual arc of the
where does the story go?
And then from there, it's like kind of breaking off of that into every individual scene and moment, you know. And so, I mean, a lot of that is just like, you know, creating that unifying look that is in pre-production, figuring out, you know, what kind of like colors are we going for, you know, the exposure, like you're trying to, you're figuring that out in pre-production, because once you're on set, like things are way too chaotic.
You better have it locked in.
And it has to be like, so become pretty like second nature when you're actually shooting it, because in the moment when you're just trying to make something like look decent on set, you know, just like get it in the can, it can be really hard to have the presence of mind to just know, you know, to
remember all that and keep it in context
so you really,
to what you're doing.
You got to work it out beforehand.
I think we got a question, don't we, Tony?
We do, actually.
Hey, all right. We love questions.
Watching today.
Yeah. We love questions.
Very exciting. It's actually, I guess it's kind of a question, and I'm going to butcher this. Sorry, Nicholas Geisler would like to know, would like to hear more about your thoughts on working with art department on low budget,
very good,
low budget features after reading the script.
Boy, art department on low budget.
You know what? That tied into something, and just to tag on here too, because I was going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Who determines colors? I mean, how is that process?
Well,
I don't want to rob that question though, but
sure. I mean, because that's a big part of art department. I mean, the buck always stops with the director.
Of course.
And usually, I mean, in my experience, that's almost always been the director. You know, that's sitting there and figuring out, like, here are the main colors I want to accentuate. Some directors don't care about it as much. Some are more collaborative. Some come to me and are immediately, you know, like here are the colors. Like, we want this, this, and this, and this. Sometimes it's in the script, and it's like, well, okay, like that's it.
Right.
But sometimes the director isn't as specific about things like color palette or whatever, and is more into like a general aesthetic, like, you know, I want this to have like this 70s vibe or something, you know. And so I would take that, and then I'd talk to the director and say, well, what do you think about maybe like this kind of color palette, you know? And then they say, oh, cool. And then like, that kind of trickles down into art department.
Sure.
Definitely trickles down into art department, you know.
Well, art is like, I mean, that's a major player.
Yeah. So on a low budget with collaborating with art department, just like everyone else, isn't usually going to have as much control on a low budget film, because you know, we're probably going to be shooting an
whatever the process is, it's going to be 3 times as hard.
Right,
with no budget,
and that's fine. Like, sometimes that's a fun challenge, you know. But like, typically lower budget, we're going to be shooting in existing locations, so there's some limited control, and hopefully locations kind of line up with that color palette.
Yes, right.
You know, usually if you're able to work out that color palette before locations are locked, then we can make all that, you know, locations, everything kind of fit in. So anyway, discussions with art department are usually going to be a lot more centered around like how the two of you can work together to kind of get the most out of this location. You know, so I might come in and say like, well, you know, shooting this way is going to be so much easier in here. You know, I like the light coming from those windows maybe, or you know, just things like that. And then that would kind of help them know sort of what to do, I guess, or I don't know. Like I guess like it's like the collaboration with any department head, like the core of the collaboration isn't really going to change that much with the budget level. I guess if you get really big budget, it can pretty much become a discussion of, you know, well, here's what we want, and they're just like, okay, great, let's go do it. Yeah,
go get it. Yeah, yeah.
So,
but you know what? I am a believer, and I think I've been in business long enough to know. You always see the guy on the other side of the fence having it a lot better than you. In other words, budget doesn't fix everything.
Yeah.
And sometimes being more nimble really makes for a better story. It makes you know, gosh, there was so many like low budget features. I'm trying to think the name of a specific one that came out. Money, where the guy said money all the time. Swingers.
Okay.
Swingers to me was a classic low budget, pulled it off, made a comedy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you look at it, I mean, there's one time, you know, that they're obviously shooting the rehearsal that they used in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's apparent to you if you know what you're doing, because it was just one camera angle, no cutaways, you know what I mean?
Got it.
But it totally worked.
Yeah.
It totally worked. And, you know, it's almost more exciting, seat of your pants.
It is.
Shoestring, you know.
Yeah, that can be fun.
Yeah,
Depends on the production. But
that depends on the production.
Yeah.
And look, let's face it, all of this depends on who's the head of the art department, who's the DP, who's the gaffer. You want to spend 10 hours with somebody you like and is contributing to the effort, right?
Yeah.
You know? Otherwise, you could have all the budget in the world and be miserable.
I do find like it helps a lot on, especially more, it helps all the time, but especially on these tighter budgets.
Yeah.
When department heads can really pull together and they're not territorial, you
Has
know,
to be.
and like,
Has to
and I can be like willing to be flexible in order to accommodate the art department and vice versa. Like, you know, if we can really kind of sit down and
I think it should be that way, because everybody's head should be on the same game. It's not what I want, it's what makes the picture better. That's the bottom line. And anyone in any business or any company should be thinking that way.
Absolutely.
I think we might have another question. We got something, Tony?
We do, actually. We do. Hi, everyone. I'm back.
Hello.
You like seeing me.
Tony.
Okay, let me parse through this. This comes from Mark Jacobs.
Mark Jacobs.
Yep, who's director of photography in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Vegas.
Yes.
Let me see if I can parse. It's kind of long. Having to always think fast on my feet, I've always relied on current technology to help deal with low budget financially and low budget of time. How do you deal with it? I guess more in the sense of lighting. It says technology in the world of sensors seem to have made it more light sensitive, so I'm actually using less light through LED tubes and not necessarily old school lighting and stuff. So I guess it's kind of how do you deal with with lighting on set in this new world of technology?
I mean, we can get into that actually a little bit with one of the scenes, both the scenes.
Okay. that may be a perfect time.
I mean, we don't necessarily have to show them right now, but a lot of what I do,
we're running out of time.
Is
Well, listen. Why don't we show that scene and you come back and use that as an example as to what you want to say?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Okay, which one would you like, the cottage scene or the diner scene?
Diner.
Oh, that diner scene was good. I posted that on mine.
Oh, wow.
Remember that? I posted on mine. Yeah, it was great.
All right, here we go.
Any way you like.
Can you tell me what time it is?
Sure, it's 8:06. Looks like you could use a bite to eat.
A coffee, please.
Dag nabbit.
Want anything with it?
7 gallons of gas.
Excuse me?
I got exactly 7 gallons of gas. It cost $17.97. I gave him $20. That was at 5 p.m.
You okay?
It's 8:06. I should have been home 36 minutes ago in West Haven with my wife, but instead here I am in... Where am I, anyway?
Saybrook? You sure you don't want some food?
No, no food. I lost an hour.
You lost an hour.
Are you sure that clock is right?
Yeah, always has been. Hey, Mr. Osgood, is that clock up there right?
On the dot.
I was pretty sure.
I remember taking Route 3, like I usually do, and passing the old army barracks, the farm equipment, the graveyard.
Tell you what. Coffee's on me tonight.
I must have backtracked somewhere. I can't remember. Do you have a phone that I can use? My phone is dead.
Not in here. There's an old payphone outside.
Wow, dude, that looked great.
Thanks.
That looked great. Very interesting too. I honestly, I wanted to see. I almost asked you, what's the story about?
Because that movie, just a quick little plug. That's called The Hour After Westerly.
Okay.
I shot that last winter.
Yes.
It's premiering at the LA Shorts International Film Festival next Thursday.
Oh, great.
On the 18th. 5:30 p.m. You can find it on their website.
Okay. Maybe we can make a post on this show about it. Yeah.
Cool. So that's premiering there. It's been accepted into several other film festivals now as well. So it's getting off to a pretty good start.
That's awesome.
Anyway, but that particular scene was in this really, really tiny space, this little diner. And Mark, this is getting at your question. That whole scene was lit with, I used really like 2 lights for the actors and 1 light as like an accent light. So.
Hold on.
What's up?
Just before, check your mic pack, will you?
Oh, wait, mic turned off.
Oh, mic turned off.
There we go.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
There we
go.
go.
Why don't you start
Sorry
over?
about that. Yeah, okay. Great. Where should I pick up from?
Yeah.
Whatever you want. Yeah. We can start
Okay,
with
cool.
Answering the question.
Okay, great. So, in case my mic was out real quick, that scene we just showed is from a movie called The Hour After Westerly.
Yeah.
It's a short film I shot last winter.
Okay.
And it is going to be premiering at the LA Shorts International Film Festival next Thursday on the 18th.
Okay.
5:30 p.m. So if you want to see it, you can find the tickets on their website. I'll be there. We can chat about it.
Yeah.
That particular scene from that movie, it's one of my favorites in the film. And this kind of goes back to Mark's question. Mark is his name. Yeah, Mark. We had very limited time in that restaurant. Very little resources. What I did there is I dropped ND into my camera so that I was dimming down.
Yeah.
And then I had 2 1x1 little panels, your panels. They're the, which ones are they?
Were they the Astras or
yeah. No, they were like the flex ones, flex lights.
Oh yeah, flex lights.
Yeah,
My flex lights.
So I had two flex lights, and that's all I used to light the actors.
That's
so
amazing.
I put some haze in there for some atmosphere.
Right.
And used the fluorescents that were in there. I just kind of figured like, yeah, they've got kind of a dirty green look.
So that one you had behind her in the kitchen, was that just a standard tube? That wasn't it was a standard tube?
Yeah, standard tube. Yeah, I didn't replace anything. I just exposed for it so that it wouldn't be blowing out or anything like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring the levels in the diner down and then hit the actress with the 1x1 panel.
Yeah.
And then I also had a backlight hidden behind a corner. It was a teeny tiny space.
Yeah.
Backlighting her and King, Peter Jacobson. And then we had a little tungsten with a red party gel on it motivated by like a neon sign that was outside. But that was fun. So it's just like those 3 lights. We set it up quickly, very minimal resources. Yeah, I mean,
it came out perfectly, dude. It looked great.
Yeah, and a lot of that for me, like when I'm dealing with limited time, limited resources. A lot of it is kind of walking into the room and thinking about like, what is the light actually doing in here?
Yeah.
Because like we don't realize that we don't necessarily always need to build the lighting from the ground up.
Yes.
You know, we can come in and kind of figure it out. And then if you can really grasp what's happening in there, then you can maybe know like, well, let's shut off these lights back here, which I ended up not even doing in that place. I left all the lights on.
Yeah.
You know, maybe shut some lights off or block some light here and there, and then bring in some of our own. But if you can grasp that and then figure out how you're going to capture that actual ambient light, then like from there, there's not a lot of work left when it comes to just kind of like lighting your actors.
Motivating.
So,
No, I think I'm so glad to hear you just use that light little package, like light and lightweight, but really nice. I love those flex lights too. They're awesome. Tony, we got another question?
We do, actually. Yeah, a lot of comments.
I love it.
What's the name of that place, by the way, the diner?
Oh, I can't remember.
Tony's hungry.
It's this tiny little diner in...
No, somebody said Westcott's with a question mark.
Oh, Westcott's, I think he meant the brand of the lights.
Yeah, Westcott,
Westcott
Flex
Yeah,
Light.
Westcott
Shows you how
Flex
much I
lights.
pay attention.
Yeah.
What you're talking about. Okay, question from Curtis Boggs.
Oh, Curtis.
Curtis, our main
Thank you for
man.
watching. How do you balance a very heavy shot list with enough time to properly light and shoot a scene? And how much time does a typical scene take, like the diner?
Well, how do I balance a heavy shot list with enough time to properly... I cut shots. No, not really. I can't. No. I mean, a lot of that
The
for me...
old-fashioned way.
That's right. I mean, you know, that's... So much of that is the director and how quickly they're going to be able to kind of to work with the talent and get things moving, I guess. Because there's a director who's good at like communicating quickly and efficiently to me and to the talent and kind of everyone in the crew, then we can get moving really quick. And then usually what I try to do is take a little bit of extra time during the setup to set up lights so that I can kind of roam with the camera. And then
you're not just stuck with one setup. Like you don't make a setup that you can't get out of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when that happens, like if I know like with this lighting, I can kind of, it's going to look good from like over here and over here and over here. It may not look as good as if I was adjusting the lights, you know. But sometimes a scene is more about the amount of coverage in the shots than it is about the light.
Yes.
And so when that's the case, like that's a you just have to try to light for for the space instead of the actors, I guess is what I'm saying.
You know what too, and this was an approach that I learned why I was doing it, because I came in with sort of an approach, and remember this is old days we're talking about now, Betacam, where it was a 2K for the key light, you know what I mean, and going smaller, easier, lighter, seeing how much. And I mean this in the sense of lighting, see how less I could do. You know?
Sure.
But with the thing with me, because a lot of my projects were not narrative, they're always too dramatic for the pieces that we were doing. I mean, it was not correct when I wanted to get something that I really liked, and you're so, but you have to light the piece. You have to light the story. You light the story for the emotional content. That's really what you do.
And then the second part of the question was, how long does a typical scene like the diner take? That specific scene? I'm trying to remember. It was a long time ago, but I think that was, well, not that long ago, but
it's a long time in DP years.
I know. Yeah. I think that was 4 hours.
That's fast.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
That's fast. For an elemental scene, that's a crucial scene.
Yeah,
right?
It was. Yeah. We got there, and I think we had lighting set up within an hour. Again, like minimal lighting, you know. What ate up most of the time in that scene was that we were right next to a very, very busy street.
Oh no!
And
so car lights coming in or anything?
No car lights. It was this audio, loud car. So Peter Jacobson, lead actor, he was playing that scene and was like, we had to do it line by line, basically.
Yeah.
I felt so bad for him, because he'd get like 2 lines in and then just
every time he starts to emote,
but then he'd just get right back into it, and that's
a good actor.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
Great actor. Yeah. Tony, did we have another question?
We do.
Awesome.
We got more.
We got some more.
I know. You guys are gonna get tired of seeing me today, but hey, thanks everybody for posting questions, because we really like this kind of stuff. We like the interaction.
Absolutely, we love it.
This comes from Mark DeLeon, so we're going to go in a little different direction. We're going in a dark direction now. How do you deal with a director that loves to take over the camera? If you've ever had to deal with something like that before.
Yeah. Sounds like that's happened to Mark.
Thank you.
Honestly, for me, it's just managing expectations, like between both the director and me. So it's those discussions in pre-production. And, you know, if I'm talking with the director in pre-pro and he tells me, you know, and I'm going to ask him too, like, you know, how involved do you want to be? Like, do you want to be operating? And if he does, that's okay. That actually, like, that doesn't bother me. What bothers me, when it can become a problem is when, you know, you walk on set or when I walk on set and I'm expecting to be the one, I guess, like calling the shots, you know?
Yes.
You're never like 100% calling the shots as the DP,
no,
but it's like, you have to figure that out in pre-pro. So if director tells me in pre-pro, I have very specific ideas of exactly the shots I want, and that needs to not bother you, then it's like, yeah, great, cool. Like, in fact, sometimes I actually really enjoy that really specific direction from a director.
Yeah.
Because it shows me that, like, that this director has a really specific vision.
He has a very good understanding of what he's trying to say. Yeah. And you know where I've found it, if you have a director who has not been a DP, you know what I mean? Then that's usually the director that is sitting back doing that. And most directors have worked with the camera before, obviously, because they were starting to build their career, built their skill sets, you know. But the ones that have been a working DP for like several years and then they go into directing, I found those are the ones that can't keep their hands off the camera.
Yeah.
You know, they're the ones that are just like, okay, let me just do this for a second. Okay?
Right.
And then there's a little pan and they're happy. I mean, but they do not think they're going to get it otherwise.
Right. I mean, the difficulty there as the DP is then you're kind of left wondering, like, do they like what I'm doing, or like, so like for me, as long as there's that understanding that, like, you know that the director knows you're contributing, but that he's going to come in and just get it because it's easier for him just to do it than trying to communicate it to you. Right. Then I'm like, okay, like that's cool.
I think Soderbergh is like that, right?
Yeah. And I've worked with directors who are like that too. You know, where like, actually, I haven't worked with one who's physically grabbed the camera yet, but I've worked with directors who will like. Just like, all right, like go over here. All right, now we're over here. You know, like
very
really specific.
Oriented.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
Yep. Yeah. Tony, anybody else want to know anything?
Oh yeah.
Boy, I tell you make my job easy on this show. Hey. Everybody wants questions.
Questions make it easy.
Yeah, we're busy today. This is great.
Yeah, this is great.
Okay, so it's a bag on the director day.
I know, poor directors.
The poor directors.
I just want to say that I love directors.
Yeah.
If you're a director I've worked with and you're watching this, don't worry.
I want you to know, and I want you to know something else. If there was a director sitting here, we'd be bagging on the DPs. That's for sure.
That's true.
So.
All right. Andrew Red, our good friend Andrew.
Yes, Andrew. Been on
the show again.
Yep.
How do you deal with a director that doesn't know anything about camera, i.e. angles, placement, coverage, etc.?
That's a producer, isn't it?
Just watch my language. No, it's. I don't know. That's you know, with that.
I think he's just saying, what do you do with a bad director? You know what I mean? Because a director should know those things.
It's part of making a movie is like, you know, that is your movie, like the visuals and the angles, stuff like that.
What else is there?
You don't need to be a micromanager, but you do need to know what you need.
Yeah.
And you need to know that at least the basics of that language.
Right.
So for me, when I am working with a director like that, honestly, I just try to adopt whatever that director's language is.
Yeah.
You know, like. If they're using wrong terminology all the time, and I know it's wrong, like honestly, I'll just go with it, you know, and just like, because that's easier than me trying to give him a lecture, you know. So
it's like when somebody mispronounces your name and you look over and go, "I'm going to spend 5 minutes with this person for the rest of my life." You don't correct them on the name.
I do that, but there's also like I try, because usually for me, what's frustrating is not necessarily when a director doesn't know anything about that stuff, doesn't know. So when a director doesn't know anything about that stuff, but then pretends
that's the word,
that he or she does know everything about that stuff.
Yeah.
And where that pretending comes from is a sense of insecurity and the feeling that it's the imposter syndrome we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
Like, oh, if the DP finds out I don't know this, then he's gonna.
Exactly.
So what I try to do is make that director feel safe and comfortable, and that I try to do this with everyone working beneath me and above me, everyone on set around me. I try to create an environment where it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to that there's not this. Like, I'm not going to bite anyone's head off.
Yeah.
And that's the same with the director. So if I find when the directors start feeling that sense of security with me, that I'm on their side, that pretending doesn't happen. And then that lack of knowledge, it really isn't an issue because it's them coming from a place of humility and talking to me. And I respect them more too, because I know that this vision that they have is valuable and has value. And it's a matter of me figuring out how to take their kind of non-filmic terms and translate that into something cinematic.
Right. And it's hard to believe that a director would be in the director's position without knowing those things, but it happens. And it happens for actually some good reasons. Sometimes it's somebody who just knows the subject matter that well, but they're not a filmmaker, or money. That's the director you could afford.
That's true.
So it's thing, but I think that comes right back to us all being able to be professionals, working by the seat of our pants, and be problem solvers on set. Really, that's why they hire us.
Yeah,
is to fix it.
It's true.
Tony, what do we got? We got another one?
More.
Oh, I got to have you on every week. You're back every week. Every Friday you're back.
We get questions. Another question from Nicholas. I thought this was kind of interesting. When budgets get higher and with it possibilities multiply, and you really still have to do the best possible work, does it frighten you? How do you grow into the new situation? I mean, I guess the question really is, as you become more experienced and you get more success and your budgets start increasing, does that change how you approach projects?
I think I actually talked about this on one of the previous shows I was on, because the answer is no, it doesn't change how I approach.
Right.
Right. As budgets gets bigger and I'm working with more gear, I'm still pulling on all of the same techniques and knowledge that I've learned on that low budget stuff. Like if I'm going out and lighting something with a 110, the thing is figuring out, and this is something you say a lot too, is how to think about light and how to understand what's going on in a room with the lighting and the camera, and then for me it's the camera and how to capture that light is a big one. And that's the same on like a $100,000 feature or a $10 million, $100 million feature. Like that's like you might be using some bigger tools or more things here and there, but those principles, they're all the same. If you watch BTS from the Dark Knight trilogy or Marvel movies, they're doing a lot of the same stuff.
It's not
it's not super different.
Yeah.
The main difference with that bigger budget stuff is that you have to be able to get into these setups in and out pretty quick.
Right.
And it might be more complicated because camera moves, you're gonna have to do these big 360s or something. It has to look good from every direction. So maybe there's more rigging, the principles of how to approach it are pretty much the same. But once you get into these bigger, in my experience, it's usually the rigging that gets more complicated.
It is so true.
So,
let me give you an example of what I see when I look at it. When I'm watching a scene that they've shot in, say, a room or studio, it's obviously, but it's a room, it's an interior. The techniques that they're using are, I think, simpler almost than a lot of the stuff that I do in the corporate pieces because they're more insecure and they're trying to look bigger and better.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's simpler there. Where I look at it and maybe have these same reactions that they're asking about is when I see some major green screen studio scene, where there's different levels on it. But when you get down to it, you're still left with you're lighting a green screen and
Right.
you're lighting an actor. Now
Right.
maybe that takes 2360 sky panels.
Right.
You know,
I mean-
instead of 2 space lights.
Right. I mean, and you're capturing an environment.
Exactly.
So it's like on a smaller scale, you might be walking into a place like I did with that diner scene we showed, and I'm kind of figuring out, okay, how do I capture this environment, and then figure out, and then light the actors. On a large scale, you're kind of deciding your environment, and so
Yes.
you can kind of imagine like, well, like it'd be great if the environment was like this, and then after that, like for me, like I would try to imagine it as like my ideal environment that I would
Yeah.
go capture, you know.
Yeah,
But it's like,
yeah.
but it's created, and then you kind of walk into it, and take it in, and then capture it just like you would a
I
practical
think,
location.
yeah. No, I think that's very true. And you know what most of it is? Because I do it to myself probably daily. Psyching yourself out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just talking about
relax.
the imposter syndrome. That's part of it, because you sit there worrying like, oh, how am I going to do this? You know what? Have confidence in yourself. And I've started doing this, a while back. I'm
Right.
just like, hey, if I can't figure it out on set, I'll give them the money back. Right? I mean, but there's never been a time for
Yeah,
that.
don't
That
let
is
that
a
get out.
totally mind screw to
Yeah, it's
yourself.
true.
You will figure it out. Of course you'll figure it out.
Yeah, I won't give your money back if I can't
Yeah,
figure out this. So, yeah.
Actually, neither
Got
will I.
rented. Yeah.
But it's just what we do to ourselves.
Oh, phone call.
Yeah, don't you know I'm doing a TV show here?
Yeah, come on, Brad.
Come on, Brad.
Yeah.
Just because you're in Chicago, that doesn't mean you can call me between 2 and 3 on Friday. You should know that. All right, very good. Sorry, Brad. I'll call you right back. Brad. You probably had a question. There. All right, we're
Call in
good.
with a
We're
question.
good. All right. Tony, how much time we got left? Oh, it's 3 o'clock now.
minutes, yeah.
Okay,
Well,
great.
we started
great.
late.
Tell me what's in the future.
Let's see. Well, yeah, just got some more shoots this month. I haven't gotten too many details on them yet, actually, but just some, smaller, like shorter run shoots this month. So that's nice.
You gonna do a little narrative? You gonna do
Yeah,
some narrative?
some narrative at the end of this month, short form, and then a feature in August.
Oh, great.
And then I don't know. We'll see. I'm talking with some other. Yeah, I've had a lot of people talking with me about features this year. We'll see how many actually pan out. You never know with those.
You'll get one or
but
two.
yeah, I mean, I'm excited. We're shooting one in August up in San Francisco. That'll be a
that's
lot of
great.
fun. Great script. It's gonna be super cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. William, thank you so much for coming by today,
Absolutely.
buddy.
Thanks for having me again.
Awesome. Oh, I love to have you on anytime. I mean, I personally learn something every time
Yeah.
you're on here, so I
Good.
appreciate
Well,
that.
Great.
You're fun to be with. I'd like to spend 10
Yeah.
hours with you on a set. So it's no problem.
Love
And
it.
everybody, thanks for tuning in today and checking out William and I. And also, you can get this on SoundCloud. We have it as a podcast now. So
Awesome.
we upload them. This one will probably be up next week or so. But we've got a bunch of them on there, so check it out. But everybody, we'll see you next Friday at 2 o'clock on Burnie's Applebox. All right, thanks. Cut. That's a wrap.